One of the most famous super clubs was Liverpool, absolute dominant force in the 70s and 80s, multiple European Cups, 3 First Division titles in 5 years under Kenny Dalglish, plus 2 FA Cups. Dalglish left in early 1991, followed by Ronnie Moran as caretaker, and then Graham Souness as permanent manager. An FA Cup and League Cup followed under Souness until Gerard Houllier and Rafi Benitez. It took 30 years for Liverpool to win their next league title. Now, one of the members of Dalglish's team who stayed at the club through Souness's era was our very own Steve Nicol, who joins us now. Hello, Stevie.
Hey, how you doing?
Thanks for your time. Now, the piece that Mark has written on this points to a key game in each of the super clubs' era as the moment in which it all seemed to begin to fall apart. And he has singled out the FA Cup semi-final, the 4-3 extra time loss to Crystal Palace. Do you feel that was as significant a moment in Liverpool's history as Mark does?
I actually don't agree. If I was to point to a particular game that seemed to start the downfall, I would suggest it was the 4-4 draw against Everton at Goodison Park. Kenny Dalglish's last game. It was a game in which it just wasn't us. We don't take the lead 4 different times and then give it away on 4 different times. That just wasn't us. Something was wrong. Something was missing. We weren't our usual selves. And what sort of clarified that as well was after the game, coming in, we're expecting a mouthful from Kenny. We're expecting to be told in no uncertain terms what's going on, how we did it wrong, how can we go ahead 4 times and lose 4 leads? But Kenny was silent, and the dressing room was silent, and I always remember thinking, this is strange. Absolutely not like Kenny at all. Just standing in the corner, leaning against the wall, still had his long red coat on and his grey pants, just kind of looking around, just sort of surveying what was going on. Even Ronnie wasn't saying an awful lot. It was just strange. And then of course we turn up the following day, on the Friday, and Kenny's gone. So for me, really, that was kind of when things started going the wrong way.
The reason I disagree with you, Steve, and obviously I defer to you as being a guy in the dressing room at the time, but the 4-3 against Palace, that for me was the first crack in the dam. That never happened to Liverpool. I take what you're saying about you never conceded 4 leads, but back in 89-90, you'd hammered Palace 9-0 in the league back in the September. So to lose 4-3 to the same team in an FA Cup semi-final 7-8 months later, a team that at that point were struggling against relegation, it was like, this never happens to Liverpool. And that's why I picked the game, because I think when a club as successful as Liverpool have a result like that against a team that they're expected to beat, it leads people to ask the questions, and that's when they start focusing on the age and the lack of the poor recruitment. And I think you're right, the Everton game was a seminal moment in the club's history because of what happened a couple of days later. But I do think that the rot had set in at that cup semi-final because of what followed in the years later.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the game, I disagree with you. We should have been a couple up at half time. We dominated the first half. Should have been a couple up. And, particularly semi-finals and cup games, to expect the same thing to happen in the second half. It doesn't normally happen in most games anyway, when you're so dominant and you don't take your chances and you don't get yourself into a position of just trying to see the game out. And so that's why I disagree with you. But then maybe you're coming at it from a different angle.
Stevie, can you give us an idea of what it's like to be in the dressing room when, I don't want to say it's all falling apart, but obviously one of the reasons we're talking about this is because of what's happened to City this season. And I think everybody in August thought, okay, City are either going to win the league or are going to be, bang there yet again. Nobody really saw this drop off coming. And it happened so quickly, so fast. What is it like when you're a player in the dressing room? You're used to winning every week, and suddenly you can't seem to win a game for love nor money.
Well, in your brain, you're searching. You're trying to figure out. Number one, you're trying to figure out, is it you? Am I doing something? Is it me? And then you're looking to the coaches and the manager to sort it out. When you're playing, everybody knows better. But then when things really start to go wrong, you're looking for something. You're looking for help. You're looking for somebody to give you that magic answer or to do a certain thing that's going to change it all. And so the fact that Kenny leaves and then Ronnie takes over, and Ronnie completely changes when he becomes the manager, because you have to. You can't. Ronnie's day-to-day was always about being on everybody, making sure everybody was absolutely at it. And when he became the manager, then obviously that changes. You can't do that when you're the manager. So everything was changing. And again, as a player, when it's going wrong, inside your head, you're searching to find out what. You always think it's one little thing that'll change it. When at the end of the day, it's not just one little thing. It's a lot of things that add up that make a team that was as good as we were just not function properly.
And Steve, beyond those things, also in this piece, I've identified that it's not just what happens on the pitch; it's off the pitch as well. Now, obviously we know that there's a really important axis at Liverpool. Peter Robinson, the CEO, John Smith as chairman. Now, John Smith was chairman for 17 years between 73 and 1990. Liverpool won 11 league titles, 4 European Cups, 2 UEFA Cups, 3 FA Cups, and 4 League Cups. Now, obviously, the chairman did not make the decisions on the pitch, but during that time, Liverpool had to replace Bill Shankly as manager, they had to replace Bob Paisley as manager, Joe Fagan, Kenny came in. All these decisions were absolute masterstrokes. Players left like Kevin Keegan, Graham Souness, Ian Rush. Again, the join was not seen. It was a perfect transition. So when John Smith left, it kind of broke up that relationship with Peter Robinson. Do you think that kind of has a comparison to David Gill leaving Man United and maybe even Chicky Bergostan leaving City?
It's very difficult for me to answer that because we really didn't know what goes on upstairs. But you can't argue with what you've just said. I think the key to all that, though, is that all those managers you spoke about were already ensconced in the building.
But it took his wisdom, I guess, and courage to promote those people as managers when it could have been easier to go outside and get a Brian Clough or a Bobby Robson. Do you know what I mean? They stuck with their principles.
I think the reason they had to go out with the building is because there wasn't anybody in the building that really looked to be the natural successor. I mean, all those names that you spoke about there, I guess probably Paisley would be one that wouldn't be a natural successor. But, they recognised who was actually in the building and who was capable. I guess that was the masterstroke of Robinson and Smith, that they understood that the people that were actually there at the time could take over and make it seamless. I guess that's the masterstroke. Now, when Kenny left, there wasn't anybody in the building capable of doing that. I think that's the key. I'm not so sure. I don't know whether it's a case of, the chairman leaving or not, but I think they were forced to go out with the building because there wasn't anybody there that was capable of carrying on where Kenny and Joe and Paisley and Shankly had left off.
And what about recruitment? Because I know when we spoke on the phone about this, that Kenny's last 2 signings were David Speedie and Jimmy Carter. Now, David Speed had a very quick rush of goals, but I think the pair of them played about 20 games altogether. Was that a sign of the club going off-piste in the sense of what they were signing, what they were doing? It was unusual for Liverpool to make those signings.
I think that's the sign of what was going on with Kenny, as opposed to anything else. We needed a couple of fresh faces to liven things up. Speedy, as you said, came in and scored some goals. Jimmy didn't quite work out, but it's not the first time a player hasn't worked out. You can't always get everything 100%. But I think more than anything, it was a sign of the kind of where Kenny was. When we spoke, every single thing from the minute I went to Liverpool in 81, the first thing that hits you is every single thing that goes on in the building is catered towards a Saturday at 3:00 in the afternoon. Every single thing. The kids, the training. I mean, just you name it. Everything was all about the first team. And that changed. Hillsborough, I think we have to mention Hillsborough as well, because that's a big factor. Because that focus that I'm talking about, that completely changed after Hillsborough. The focus on everything, or it seemed like it, was to look after the families and try and sort out what was going on with Hillsborough. And the first team kind of became second. So again, that's another layer. So you've got the chairman leaving, you've got the cloud hanging over the club at Hillsborough. You've got Kenny's health affected by Hillsborough. He's still trying to keep us top of the tree. There's no obvious successor, as we've said. So, the fact that, again, it's just another layer upon layer that's going wrong.
At what point after Kenny left and Graham Souness came in did you think, we're not on our way back here, we're just not Liverpool anymore?
Liverpool always, at the end of every season, sitting on top of the tree, would always make a signing or a couple of signings that basically kept us there for 25 years. And all of a sudden, when Graham came in, and don't forget, FIFA, UEFA changed the rules now. We were a team that was full of so-called foreigners. Scots became foreigners, Irish became foreigners, Welsh were foreigners. And so there had to be an influx of English players. Otherwise, if you get into Europe, you can't play. So Graham Souness had no choice to come in and get rid of a lot of players. A, because they were foreigners, and B, because, we're getting a little bit older. So Liverpool went from signing one, maybe two players at the end of a season to Graham Souness having to sign 6, 7 and 8 players. So again, another layer on top of problems.
What was it like, Stevie? I know you were there till 1994, I think.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of years after you'd won that last league title. As one of those senior players, what were those last couple of years like at Liverpool?
Not enjoyable. Again, you try to figure out what's going wrong, and I think a lot of things changed as well. The how can I put this? There was a certain type of player would come to Liverpool, and that was a humble, keep your head down, work as hard as you can, keep your mouth shut, take in what's going on around you. Kind of an old school temperament, and all of a sudden, all the younger players, and not just the younger players, but even the established players, started becoming sort of big timers. Everybody was cocky. Everybody had an attitude. Everybody almost kind of, it was about them, and it had always been about the guy next to you. So there was definitely a change in character of the types of players that were at Liverpool as well.
The Spice Boys.
Pardon?
The Spice Boys. Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, it actually ended up accumulating into the Spice Boys probably, a couple of years after I left. But
Which Spice for you, Stevie?
That Spice Boy thing started early 90s. I'm sorry, probably coincided with Kenny leaving. Let me just put it that way. It seemed to kickstart after Kenny left.
Steve was Old Spice.
I'm definitely Old Spice. Splash it all over, those that don't know.
Do you see any comparisons with City, Steve? Obviously, I think, they've had a couple of good results the last week or so, the 6-0 Ipswich, but, letting the kind of core team get old, uncertainty over the manager, people leaving like Chicky Baguri staying. Do you think City have got signs, or are you kind of thinking they're still here for the long haul?
Well, I think it's a little early to say that they're going to go the same way. It's not only has it caught them off guard, it's caught us off guard. Nobody saw this coming. I mean, this is edge of the cliff stuff. But the finances, the backing they have, you got to think that this season is going to be a blip. They've already showed intent by signing Haaland to an almost 10-year contract. So I think it's a little bit early to say that, they're falling off they've certainly fallen off the cliff in terms of going for the title, but I think it's a little early to say that they're falling off the cliff in terms of they're not going to win a title for another 30 years, let's put it that way.